suppression, the use of marijuana.
Cool. Actually, I was just speaking to some people about not knowing how tall I am because I think that I'm taller than I am.
Oh.
And Zach, I thought that me and Zach were the same height, and Zach is 5 inches taller than me.
What?
Zach is 5'10".
No, he's not.
No. Yeah, I think he is. He's even taller than I thought.
No, there's no way.
No, maybe he's 5'8". Maybe I thought he was
5'11".
I'm 5'6".
I thought he was 5. He's 5'8". I thought he was like 5'6", and I thought I was 5'5", and he is in fact 5'8", and I'm 5'3.5".
I forget that you're smaller than that.
I'm sure. I know, and I am too short.
I know
I'm
is.
shorter
It's
than I
because
thought.
your sister wears heels constantly,
She
and I just
does.
assume you're her height because
Yeah.
you're twins.
Yeah.
Also, you have
She's.
a bigger personality
Well,
than a
she's-
5'3" person.
Thank you.
All
Sorry.
person energy.
Thank you. I gave myself a Napoleon complex. No, she is even taller than me though. She's like 5'6" in real life.
She took all the height.
She did.
Have you
She
seen
sucks.
the Netflix movie?
I don't know if you're
or
listening, Sam, but you
series
suck.
Or whatever, Tall Girl.
I heard about
I
it.
think it's a movie. I can't remember.
I don't know what it is.
Oh,
think they made
no,
a second
it's like a
one.
Netflix movie.
Is it a show or
I
is
think
it
it's
a
a
movie?
movie. I don't know.
I think it's a movie, but I can't remember.
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
tall, so I didn't relate.
Yeah.
You are tall to me, if that helps.
Thanks. I was also tall to everyone in my sorority.
Good for you. Good for you.
I can't remember. There was a line in the trailer that, you know, in Riverdale when Archie's in prison.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you've never experienced the epic highs and lows of high school football."
Yep.
There's a line in Tall Girl that's like,
Oh,
that about being tall.
I did see that.
I don't
Yep.
remember what it is, but
Yeah,
it's
that's rough.
It's iconic.
I have an outline. I actually wrote it down.
I love this.
It's still not super specific. Well, we're here. Okay, so
And we're queer.
Do you think you just fell out of a coconut?
Let's go.
let's do this. Okay, hi everybody. We're doing we're gonna do things a little differently today. We're gonna actually have attempts at structure.
What?
We'll see if it works out. So I'm Tiah,
I'm Jamie.
I'm Ryan.
and we're the ADHD queens,
Woohoo.
and we have Victor with us today.
Hello.
Victor is my partner who happens to be from Colombia, which is where the book is from.
So handy.
I know. It's convenient. Anyway.
My partner's from America. That's so boring.
Mine too.
Yeah, but yours is way more fluent in Spanish than I ever will be.
That's true.
Valid. He does teach Spanish.
It's very good. I was shook. Anyway, so the book Maria by Jorge Issacs was originally published in 1867. So this is probably the oldest book we've read to date.
I believe so.
And it wasn't translated into English until 1890. And notable thing is that it's his only novel, and it is a part of the Romantic literary movement, or it's considered a part of it. The specific genre, though, that they mentioned that I was reading on, it was costumbrismo. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is defined as the literary or pictorial interpretation of local everyday life, mannerisms, and customs, primarily in the Hispanic scene of the 19th century, which
It sure did that.
it did that a lot.
It did.
Very much so.
Good job. Good job, Jorge.
Woo. But yeah, he's supposedly considered like a pioneer for all of that, especially in South America versus Spain, because most of the time it was in Spain, and then this was shifting as colonialism happened. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to do a quick summary. I will use Jamie's words. Similar to like Cobalt Blue, not a whole lot of plot development really occurs. There is a lot of things that happen within the story, so that's going to be different from Cobalt Blue. However, information that's like important is mostly like within the details, and so you're just like kind of enjoying the poetic descriptions and the main character's perspective on the world.
The Ephraim.
Ephraim.
Ephraim, okay. And then his family, and it goes through essentially his love story with Maria, whom is a cousin in a very intriguing way. So she comes to live with his family through hardship from her family needing to give her up, essentially. But they are related to each other, and they find this romance that blossoms when she's 16. It's
How
like
old
6
was she?
years. She was 9 when he left, and it's like
Yeah,
6
and he
years
was
after.
12, I think.
Yeah.
So
And then she's 16, and he's about 18,
yeah, so he's
20.
18.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're still
Or
both
19.
fairly young, trying to figure stuff out. Ephraim has a lot of potential to be really important and beneficial to his family, and then Maria is just kind of this pretty girl that lives at home and potentially has a debilitating disease. And so that makes
Cheers.
some various impacts, and then you kind of watch what their life is like as wealthy Hispanics in blossoming Colombia.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess we move to first impressions.
Do you want us to tell you how the book ends?
Oh yeah, I haven't finished
Tiah didn't
the book.
finish the book.
It's okay.
So
It's okay. I just didn't read the book.
you didn't read any of the book?
I read being generous, I read like 20 pages.
Ryan. Okay.
Well,
Essentially,
So much happening.
so
there's a lot of stuff
There is a
happening.
lot of stuff happening, and I will grant that. Essentially, we go through this love story. The whole time there is this lingering knowledge that Ephraim is going to have to leave to finish his schooling in Europe. And we are getting closer and closer and closer to that. And he's just going about his life. And then that sort of bumps up. They thought that it was going to get pushed out, but then it comes that it's going to be the January of this following year. So we're in like fall. And they're like, oh no, this is going to happen right now. So he's very sad. Maria's very sad. And then he leaves. And he continues to get letters from her like 2 a month until all of a sudden, like a year in, he gets no letters from her for 2 months. And then he's like, oh no, is she sick? And he gets kind of these letters back that are kind of like, I'm doing okay. And then all of a sudden he gets this letter that is like, come home right now. I'm dying. I will die unless you come back here. You have to come right now. And then his dad also sends a letter that says, come back right now. Maria's dying. He does go back. He is on his way back.
Casually.
Um,
I'm across the ocean.
Yeah, he is just
Crazy.
going as fast as possible. He keeps having to be like,
And his journey, it was so detailed. His journey, he went through so many people's houses. Like, this guy was my dad's friend, and now he's the mayor.
yeah.
And, like,
I was sitting there the whole time like, I just need to know if she died.
right. No, same.
So you're going through, and it's just like in excruciating detail. And then you finally get home, and he runs in and he says, Maria, where is she? And his mother says, in heaven, because she did die.
God.
So
Yeah.
then the rest of the book is just him kind of processing, and he loses it. Obviously.
yeah.
It's
he
like
didn't even get to kiss
torture.
the
Yeah.
Because he goes to the same places, and he tells himself, he's like, I'm never coming back here.
Yep.
But he goes to the same places, and it's really just, I mean, the whole preface of the story, it's just really like
Premise.
or the
Premise.
premise or
Yeah.
the topics of it. It's just that like doomed love.
That's rude. I'm
no,
upset.
At some point,
No, it's fair
you know,
though.
at some point that I'm not sure if y'all caught, they talk about a blackbird,
Yes.
and they're freaked out about the blackbird. And for me, the blackbird represents death,
Yeah.
and the inevitable death. That's not only in their relationship because of her illness and love in general. You know, there's always an end to things
Sure.
in life, but it's their fear and their terror, right? And I think it's interesting how they manage Maria's perspective through life and through her knowing that she at any point could die. Like when they talk about when they went horse riding, and she was like afraid, and then eventually she was like, doing it like nothing. And he was like, "Are you not afraid?" And she was like, "Yeah, but."
Whatever. Gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, and I really love that. And it just, it makes you think of that, like, afterlife, coming to terms with and force an early death.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna finish this now.
No.
Because that's so upsetting. Like you know, it's like the gun. If there's a gun, someone's gonna get
Chekhov's gun.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I know, because they dropped the illness. Well, and he did a very interesting thing, which is dropping the illness at the beginning of the book and then like periodically kind of bringing it up, but not really talking about it enough that you're
Right.
constantly thinking about that. So I was pretty sure Maria was going to die just because like I have read a lot of books, but I was like, you have persuaded me that there is enough of a chance that I
Yeah.
am still like we were like watching a movie last night at my house, and I was like, okay, we're watching the movie, but I have to find out right now if she dies or not. You know, it was like it was enough enthralling that I did need to sit down and finish to find out what the hell was going on.
that was what was pushing me through. Like I still didn't finish, but that's because of time management skills are lacking, and I'm sick.
Yeah, you were valid.
But what did get me was just like, there's clearly some very interesting things happening in the story, and I wanted to see if they did get their happily ever after because I'm a romantic person.
Do we want to do first impressions before we get into the analysis? Because have you read this book before?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so no one has read this book before.
Correct.
And
And
some of us
Ryan
have not
hasn't
read this book.
still.
That's another thing I wanted to know. My mom freaked out when I told her about it.
Oh, yeah?
She jumped. She was like, "I love that book." I guess they made her read it in school.
Yeah,
it's
that checks out.
It's a huge literature classic, and
I could
Latin
see your
American
mom liking this book
literature. Yeah.
So
for so many reasons.
First impression of however far you got, which is only a first impression.
based on what you guys have told me right now as we're recording, it sounds almost like in the same vein of My Antonia by
See, I
Willa
never
Cather.
read that. That is I didn't
can't-
read that Cather. I read other Cather.
Did you
but
read
not
O Pioneers?
I read Lost Lady.
Okay, well, those were the two that we read in high school.
I know.
so-
It was a Nebraska history teacher that told us to read Lost Lady, so that's the only one that I read.
Yeah, O Pioneers is very descriptive, like 3-4 pages of like the wind blowing across the prairie, making it ripple. Like
That's all you can do for Nebraska.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
cheers.
But like My Antonia, it sounds kind of in the same like vein of like people coming and going and a lot of descriptors and the romanticism kind of aspect of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that Cather is like romantic,
Yeah.
But I feel like
But-
he takes like elements of
but
it.
yeah,
and ties it in.
there's definitely elements of it.
Doesn't
So-
she write about life in general?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of
That's
just
like
like,
a
the
part of it.
day-to-day life of a pioneer.
Which
Yeah.
is,
Which
you
is,
know,
like,
very
very
similar,
similar.
Yeah.
in content. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
What were your first impressions, Tiah?
I don't know if you all have seen it, but like those old, maybe old Western movies is another genre, but I was definitely thinking more old, like Western inspired, but it's mostly Hispanic culture, and they're all like sepia, but not quite. There's like a little color, and they're
Yes.
just being super dramatic, and like the girls are crying at the drop of a dime, and that's all I could see every time they interacted with each other, and I was just like, oh, it's this like really soft coloring, and everything's super beautiful and lush, and so I was like, oh, this is pretty in my head, and I was trying to imagine how it would appear on screen, and I was like, it would be such a long movie. But that's, and then I had some concerns, but I know that it was of the era, but I was just like, oh, every time this happened, I was like, oh, because I forget that slavery was a thing all
Yep.
the way through the Americas.
Yep.
And Victor even brought that up specifically to me. Because I asked, I was like, when they're talking about like the black people or the brown people, are they referring to actual Africans, or are they talking about like indigenous darker brown skin? And he made sure that I was aware that it is both.
yeah. Yeah.
But I was just like having a really hard time with that. Just, I don't know. I know what it looks like here in America in my head, but like imagining it elsewhere, is hard for some reason.
Well, and if you don't know the history of it, it's
Right.
it's hard.
Colombia went through a really interesting process. I
Yeah.
kind of fucking hate it because he was all like church oriented. Because essentially the
Of
church
course.
was like, nah, it's actually bad. And they were like, okay, I guess they're human.
Ugh, I guess.
yeah.
Yikes.
And it was like slowly they were like, yeah, no, yeah, they're people.
There was like a point though, I was reading just like a quick historical summary, and there was a point where they like had several laws that were mandated for them to not be like slaves anymore.
Yep.
But then like everyone was like, we're gonna like say okay, but we're not gonna abide by it.
Right.
Some people were extreme in both ends of it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same as here in the United States. The bigger cities were like more open and progressive than like deeper
Deeper
areas, which that's where most of the book happens. It's in
Yeah.
Valle del Cauca, which I want to also just mention. It's like a very farming, rural, like it's known for people to go visit the coffee plantations, the plantain plantations, the sugar cane plantations. There's all sorts of products, things, you know, that comes out of there.
Sure.
And for the, like I said, for him to have all this knowledge of like the outside world and coming from the area where he was from, it's unique.
Yeah.
It's very unique.
Yeah, because I did read too, because I was trying to just understand the story from outside, contextually. They mentioned that it's just such a important piece of literature.
It is such an interesting, just like day to day, like seeing where he goes, who he talks to, how he works with those people, where he goes to school, where he, all of this stuff. And like, I kind of loved every interaction that he had with people, and like the different things that he says to them, and sort of like all the young people and their jokey, and like, I don't know. I had kind of a really interesting time with that.
There's a lot of description of the culture back then, of how diverse Colombia is. Like I was just telling Tiah, like the girl, like it's from Jewish descent.
How did I not get that?
There's indigenous people. There's African, Colombian African and African people, slaves, half slaves. There's like mestizos. There's like a bunch of different interactions between different tiers of society.
And like seeing all of that.
I really wondered how the translation was with all the colloquialisms. Is that what it's called? Because that's something that I love when I listen to it. By the way, I listened to the whole thing. The
In
guy
Spanish.
did a really good job at utilizing the different accents. So
cool.
Colombia, it's a very small country. I think it can fit like 30 times into Texas or something like that. Some crazy stuff. But it has so many different like accents and dialects. People have a notion that like Colombians talk people from Antioquia, which is very close to where they're at.
They mentioned it.
Yeah. And actually Jorge Issacs was the president of the state of Antioquia before Colombia, like all of the states of Colombia unified into. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it used to be a lot of states extended all the way through like Peru, Brazil, Ecuador, and Simon Bolivar came through and he was like, bye Spaniards. But anyway, the colloquialisms and like you said, the interaction between Ephraim, his slaves, helpers, the other people, and their actual, slaves that they treated poorly or
Right.
the interactions with Native people. And when you really hear the different accents, it really puts you in that moment of like, whoa, like there's so much diversity. There's so much like.
See, that's the downside then, because we could only read it.
Yeah.
Because there is
there's
no
no
English
audio book.
When he comes back from Europe and they did such a extensive work in narrating like his journey back. That's a long journey from the landing port in Cartagena. It's all the way north of Colombia, so like you have to take a very long river down south into Valle del Cauca. It's called the Rio Magdalena. It's like one of the biggest rivers. It crosses the Andes mountains, and it goes out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's
weird when it's real.
geolocation. Right. Again, his family don't really like refer to them as their slaves. His family had different like specific names to their helpers. They either refer to them by their names, or like, oh my God, I'm sorry, because there were actually words that I had never heard. Like it's such old Spanish.
Yeah.
That even I was like, oh, okay, like I didn't know that.
Well, at least in the version that I was reading, the things that were left untranslated were like food, plants, and animals that were not English related. Like there were no English words for those things.
Yeah.
At least at the time.
I felt like for me, as far as the translation went, I felt like there were certain points where I couldn't follow what the conversation was, because like I can see these words and they're all kind of like they're all translated into English, but I sort of wonder what liberties they took. So when I was living in France, just for a semester, I took a class on language translation, which was so fascinating, and I did such a bad job at it. But
So
what
hard.
they did is we talked about all the different types of translation. So whether you are translating word for word, or if you say a bowl in a china shop, in
what you
English,
have to translate.
what are you translating that to? Because you can translate those word for word into French, say, but that isn't going to necessarily make sense. I think theirs has something to do with a monkey, is like their equivalent of that.
Yeah.
But there were some times that like words that made no sense contextually to be sitting next to each other were in there. And I have a feeling that sometimes that was just like a translation situation.
I noticed a couple times they were talking about something. It was obviously a pink flower, but they never said flower. They just said pink. And I was like,
yeah.
they're
It was
missing a
roses.
word. Yeah. So,
roses.
but it was like
It was just like, what?
something was missed.
Yeah,
when
I
you
had to
translated
figure
that.
out.
It was
yeah.
like, as long as this rose keeps on blossoming, your love is gonna be on my head. Is what Maria told
Yeah.
my boy.
Yeah. But it was just like, hey,
Yeah,
you
it was.
forgot a word.
There was just like a
multiple
couple
times.
Yeah, there were just a couple times that I was just like, I had to just skip to the end of a chapter
Yeah.
because I was like, I just don't have the ability. I would have to speak Spanish well enough to read this and know what they meant in order to translate it for myself, and I obviously do not do that.
Okay. I was shook when I found out that he has a bunch of siblings that were never talked about.
Oh my god! Wait,
yeah.
my
The
favorite.
sisters.
So he's got Emma, and then he's got a younger brother named
Felipe.
Felipe. But then he mentions that there's others,
Wait,
but never talks about
My
any
very
of them.
favorite quote about the family and the siblings is Felipe and the next younger.
Yes.
Like he doesn't even say a name. He never gets a name. He's just like, I'm gonna go sleep in the room with Felipe and the other one. What?
And he does it again when he talks about leaving. This is like right before I had to stop. But he talks about, and he acknowledged everyone down all the way to Juan Angel. And I was like,
Wait.
who is
Where did
everyone?
they show up?
he honestly only ever refers to his parents and Emma.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes me think it's also it's a semi-biographical autobiography.
Oh, really?
So
Oh,
like
okay.
I wonder if so first of it all, back then people had a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bunch, because the death rate was insane. So I can see why he didn't really go into that deep on their names. It's like you don't expect them to leave past 6 months,
Yeah.
then
That's
5
fair.
years, then 10.
You're like,
Yeah. But like, because they're doing, like, I think at some point they asked their dad, like, when did you start having businesses and all of this? And they're like, at 20, at 24.
Yeah.
So it's like they were very young. Like, life was very quick back then.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot what we were talking about.
All of the siblings, and only
Yeah.
only some of them get names.
No, yeah. And
Very
so,
silly.
So I wonder if in his life he had a lot of siblings, but he had like a special one.
Yeah.
I wonder if that actually happened to him, the actual story, if his family had adopted someone.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
And like I wonder how to what extent is
it true?
Aligned to reality.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's like the
He was like I said, he was the president of that state. He had military. He has
blows my
military
mind.
culture.
That's crazy.
He was out there doing like extra missions. He was president. He was a military guy. Then he was like, I'm gonna go write a novel.
Yeah.
Then some poems.
Why not?
Then I'm gonna go explore northern Colombia and find oil and a bunch of other stuff. And he just made money. And
Honestly, good for you, bud.
that's
Good for you.
he died writing a historical novel. I don't think he got to finish it.
Yeah. Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way he didn't just be like the one is good enough.
Yeah,
I think he was just doing too much.
yeah. At some point,
You gotta stop.
you gotta face that you're doing maybe too much.
Especially with all the description. And don't get me wrong. And I, of course, with the translation, I don't know how much of it is aligned properly, but it was very beautifully written, and like the character's description of their like romance was very sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times he said, "I kissed her hand."
Yeah.
He kissed her hand and didn't ever get to kiss her.
I honestly, I really liked Maria. I thought that I thought at the beginning that she was just going to be sort of this like demure, does nothing, whatever. But she gets kind of sassy.
At first, I was shook.
And I was like, okay.
She
I'm
developed a
listening.
personality. I was
She
like, oh,
did.
thank God.
I was like, oh.
So she's
I
not
love
just
that.
a man like in Cobalt Blue.
No, she's not
She's
just
just a
a
man.
nameless man. Yeah.
It kind of feels like it, like the way that they describe, and he only describes her and like no one else.
No one else.
Like no one else exists.
We get like every outfit that she's wearing
Every
and what
detail.
texture it is, and everyone else is just
For
like,
real?
they're there.
Yeah, we got like a ton of color references in her outfits.
Yeah.
And like
Her dresses are, contrasting beautifully to her dark hair
scarf laid
and the
across her
scarf and the
shoulders.
embroidery and everyone else. Like you get some stuff, but it's like
And
he
they
is
were
like,
pretty.
and it's like, oh, they have these beautiful outfits on.
Okay, but question: is it only physical things that he does to her and not to other people
Yeah.
specifically? Because
He will describe
the
people.
way he described people and his
it's
father, like his father's attitude and the way he carried himself.
Oh yeah,
and-
he will describe people. It's
Yeah.
just like when he's talking about Maria.
Yeah.
It is just the most detailed. I could see every one of those
yeah.
outfits, and everyone else. It's like, just sort of like the normal. And he is very eloquent and loquacious, but with everything that she wears, it's like you're gonna know exactly what she looked like. Imagine the beauty.
like if they were to make a movie and they did not get her outfits right, it would be
it would be
just
wrong.
absolutely disrespectful.
Can I geek out for a second, real quick?
If you
Absolutely.
want.
Growing up, reading to a lot of Colombian literature, it was all very descriptive, just like that. It reminded me of a lot of the books that I grew up reading, and I was able to like realize that because now I don't read. Is this fantasy? No,
It's a fiction. It's
it's
literary
fiction. I don't
fiction.
really read
Yeah.
fiction. She knows. I read most like motivational. I don't even know what they're called.
It's mostly nonfiction.
Yeah. But like, it reminds me a lot of Aldous Huxley's. Oh my goodness, what's
Which
it called?
one?
It's not Brave World. It's
Chrome Yellow.
no.
Birds. What's the island one?
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe I've.
Is it the one that you have in our basement?
He's the Doors of Perception.
Yes, that's
The
it.
Doors of Perception.
It's like Brave New World. What's going on?
He was a scientist. He actually comes from a family of scientists and literatures, and I don't even know what else. I just found out recently.
Aldous Huxley?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like really
he
in
was the
deep.
first one that synthesized the active compound in peyote. Peyote. Yeah,
Oh.
I forgot what it's called right now. But he tried it, and in his book, he becomes so descriptive of the crevices of the furniture, of the color of the walls, of like every single visual aspect that he could like think of, and that reminds me a lot of that literature that I grew up like reading. Like it's just so not only poetic in a way and like eloquent, but also like descriptive. When I grew up, reading for me was like TV in a way. I would like just like be able to make movies in my head out of
Yeah.
what I was reading because it was like right there. It was like a script.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this has probably been one of the few that I've been able to visualize the majority of it. I think I said that about another book prior, but this one is the most recent one
Yeah.
that I can remember.
I have a hard time, mostly because I do very well when I'm physically reading nonfiction and listening to fiction, because like my brain can't do all of the. I just get my brain starts focusing on something else if it's too much description and not enough is happening. So that did take me a little bit to get into, and especially the print that I have is just useless. So once I found the PDF online, it was a little bit better, but it was hard. I had to like really focus in to get through all of that. I think I would have had a much better time if I was listening to the audiobook, because it's so much easier for me to like listen to someone saying all of these things instead of having to focus on the words.
Yeah.
I can do like numbers and I can do history facts in books, but it's harder for me to do fiction.
Yeah.
It was hard for me too. I had to listen to half of it twice at first
Yeah.
because, like I told you earlier, it was a little slow, I think.
Yeah.
And as you're saying, like, it seems like not much happens,
Yeah. Once
but it does. It
Yeah.
somehow goes through 3 stages of their lives.
Yeah. I had to get to the point where I could figure out, okay, this is what we're doing. Like, we are just living our lives here.
Yeah.
There is not going to be another plot point that I'm waiting on, which is fine. As long as I know that, it's better for me. I just had to. The biggest thing was just trying to like, because I knew it's very pretty and the way that he's describing stuff is very interesting, but it was like I had to like sit down and be like, don't skip that.
Yeah.
It's important.
So, semi-related, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast or not, but when you think, do you see pictures in your head, or do you see like words, or do you see nothing?
It depends for me.
Kind of nothing.
I just read a paper on that.
I don't really see anything
Some people
unless
are not able to. Some people are not able to.
unless
Or
I'm
do you hear
thinking
your
of-
own voice?
I hear my own voice.
Okay.
If I'm thinking of like a memory or something that I've seen, I can see that.
Okay.
But
Oh,
like
sure.
if you tell me to like imagine a dog, there's nothing happening.
brain just
I have to
blanks.
like think of a specific dog and then I can see
have
that.
like defaults.
I think
Yeah.
Come up.
like
I go to the last thing that I can relate to it. If not, I think I go to the internet. If it's not something that I've physically seen, I've probably seen almost everything in the
Yeah.
internet.
it's
Yeah,
it's
no,
scary.
that's interesting because like what we were talking about, like seeing the movie in your head
Yeah.
or whatever. I was like, that to me, that's always. Like,
Okay.
Like,
even when we read Uva,
yeah, especially when we read Uva.
I love that for you because
I
I
could
only
just-
had certain scenes come out.
I could see it, the whole thing perfectly in my head. It was
That's so
immaculate.
sad at
and
the
then I
same
watched,
time.
and then I watched the movie, and like a lot of it did line up. Like,
Oh,
it was,
nice.
The movie is very good. It's American and not
Yeah.
Swedish, but
Still,
Which is rude because the sob is so important.
truly. But yeah, like, so I was talking with Sana, our friend, about that, and if she's thinking like, oh, I have to go to Target to get milk, she sees like Target logo and milk.
oh,
She doesn't think the words, I need to go to Target for milk.
I
Oh.
would say that I do think words.
Okay.
I think.
I think
'Cause-
store shopping.
Because like when I like talk to myself in my head, I
Yeah.
hear my own voice, and I like, but that is like also accompanied with visuals.
It's just my brain.
So like I say I need to go to Target to get milk. I can say those words inside my head, internal monologue, but there's also like flashes of like me in Target getting milk,
oh, so yeah.
and it all
Oh.
like combines together.
Like, I
Mine
just-
happens in different like realms. Like for me, I find a book to be really interesting if I can create a visual setting. But like, you know how everyone got so upset about who was this or who was casted as this because they didn't look like this. Like Hermione can't be whatever because she wasn't described. I was like, you gave me what she looked like when you put her as Emma Watson.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I had. I didn't even visualize the rooms they walked into. I was just like, okay, this is what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So, but this one, I was able to see it, but I think it's because I had, like, something as a frame of reference, but it was still blurry. Like, there weren't defined details.
I think a lot of times people are kind of faceless in my brain movie unless it gets, like, really detailed, or if I have, like, a reference like that. So, like, not with Uva because I watched the movie after I read it, but like with like Divergent, the main character, she's described not at all like Shailene Woodley. But I had seen the movie trailer before I read the book. I hadn't seen the movie, but I had seen the trailer. So then in my head it was just Shailene Woodley, even though that didn't match the description that I was given. But like other like characters that aren't in the movie were just kind of like faceless blobs, like mannequins.
So it's called aphantasia when you cannot visualize things. Can you? Okay, supposedly, how difficult is it for you all to memorize people's faces or remember?
Oh my God, I'm so good at faces and also names.
Okay, that's good.
I'm crazy good at that.
What about characteristics of your past?
Characteristics of my past.
Things about your past life. Yeah, how you grew up, like
your memories like that. I have trauma.
That's the thing is there are like certain
maybe
things.
that's why I can totally see why, because of that trauma your brain is not able to visualize, because that's what it says. It's a 10-year study that they did, where that some people just cannot have like visualize things in their mind completely.
That's wild.
To me, when I read it a couple of months, like a month
My
ago,
brain weird.
and I was like, whoa, like, I cannot imagine.
So are ours, but
they're
all special.
so weird.
We're all different.
Brains are weird.
Yeah.
Brains are
Dude,
weird.
taking psych classes has only reaffirmed that brains are fucking weird.
Yeah.
I love
I-
them.
Do we have more to say about this
Um,
book?
Way off topic.
I had one little note that was, I love Ephraim being a matchmaker when he's like working with Salome, when he like, it's very cute because he just like shows up and her dad's like, I need her to get away from this guy. And then he goes and he's like, so what are you thinking? And she's like, well, this guy's being dumb and I don't care about this guy, but I love him. And then he goes to the guy that she loves and he's like, don't be an idiot.
Something we haven't touched on in the topic of romanticism and the culture, it's that, again, the continuity of parents asking for this girl's hand, and also Ephraim being like, oh, I can't do this because I gotta fulfill my father's wishes.
the filial piety.
So it's like
Filial piety.
is that what it's called?
Wow.
It's like when you have it's
That's a $10 word.
Yeah.
I don't know.
it's 2 words.
Yeah, filial piety.
Yeah, it's like about honoring your family and doing what is good by them.
Yeah.
Even
Crazy.
if you're an individual who has hopes and dreams.
And another thing is, I think it's the emotional maturity of Ephraim. Again, when he's
20. There's
Yeah,
no way this man
seriously.
is real.
yeah, like when he's going through that grief at the end, especially, and when he tells himself literally like, I'm never coming back here.
Yeah.
That was his home.
He's
Yeah.
like, we sat here. This is the last place where she like laughed.
I touched her hand
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
The first place she touched my hand.
Does he reference the point where she like rolls up her sleeves and he's like admiring
Oh my God, I
her
forgot
arm?
about that. He's like, yeah.
Yeah,
that's very
yeah.
funny.
I was like, damn, it really be the shoulders though.
I love the
Yeah.
times that he like gives her like a flower or something, and she like tosses them somewhere. Or, like,
Yeah.
but like I don't think she means that out of malice. I think she seems like a very like, I don't want to say naive, but they really do a good effort on like portraying her with a lot of purity, maybe, or like
But he definitely views
innocence.
her
Innocence.
in an innocent light, the virginal.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, it reminds me a lot of my mom, especially because she grew up in a rural area. I cannot imagine how difficult that was, especially because her dad died when she was just a baby. My grandma was alone with 3 children, and what was it? Oh, there are 3 baby mamas, eventually 5 that my grandpa had. They had a lot of land. My grandpa came from money. It really touched onto something close to me because my grandpa came from like a wealthy family, and they lost everything because of all the different families and whatever. And like I said, my mom told me the other day, she was with Nefeli. Oh yeah, my 2-year-old, our 2-year-old. She made me go on the slide, and I've never been on a slide before.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She like when we had a s'more for the first time.
She's
in
almost
Florida,
70 years old. She's
Oh my God.
70 years old. I
I
think.
was so shook, and she loved it, and I was like,
Yeah.
S'mores? Yeah.
yeah. I was like, we need.
Good.
I think she would
S'mores are
like
the
the
best.
alchemist tea. I want to take her to have that.
Oh
I
my
think
God.
it would be a fun little.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
like some shit that literally just made me cry. Like,
Yeah.
she's for as smart as she is. She was an accountant for the government. She did a lot. She's had properties. She's done a lot of shit in her life, but she still has a lot of innocence in her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something that I admire for her, and it's something that's very common in Colombian culture, Colombian women. My mom always talks about it.
That's just how they are.
again, in bigger cities and whatnot, it's much different. But in smaller town and more rural areas, people are still sticking to those traditions.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, because I took my psych class, right? One of them was lifespan, and I had to ask somebody who was like in their 60s to 80s, like about dating when they were young. So I had to ask 2 people. So I asked my grandma, and then I asked Cecilia, and their dating situation was so innocent and so sweet and simple in comparison to this crap we deal with. And I was just like, wait, so you couldn't even like go out to certain things, and like you had to have someone with you. And she was so like cute when she was talking about it, and so like smiley and reflective on it. I was like, you couldn't even show your wrist though.
It was a lot of family interaction, and that's
Yeah.
what they talk about in the book as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, again, Colombians, they like bring you into like their deepest core.
Yeah. I've met so much family over the phone that it's very unnerving.
But I think they also mention how some of them are kind of petty and like.
That's also true.
Yeah, I was like, dang.
It's not too far off from any culture, though. It's just like
Yeah.
there's always those like negatives and positives.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean by the book reflecting your mom. That makes a lot of sense to me, especially when she's so protective of Nefeli.
Yeah.
Anything that hurts her, she swears that it's her fault, and she like is ready to cry. I can see it. I'm just like, it's
Dude, no, it's not even that. It's just she takes everything to the heart, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing about Colombia's society, and that's what I meant about I can even imagine how hard it was for her growing up, being a woman in a super macho country in the 1960s, in the country.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I don't even want to talk about or think about that could have, and I hope not happened.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that she's my mom and that she's still here with me.
I love that. That is so wholesome.
Yeah,
But-
no kidding.
but,
I do
yeah.
not have that opinion of my mom.
And for our next podcast, we'll talk
That's
about
so
Jamie's
wholesome, though.
traumas.
Yeah. Lol.
Oops.
I just love hearing that when people like have a good relationship with their
With their
parents.
parent,
That's
yeah.
like so sweet to
Hold
me.
up.
I
It's
love
taken
it.
me 26 26 years to be this close to my mother.
That's
and
super
being
fair.
able to appreciate her for what she is.
That's
Like,
valid.
She's a Gemini.
Yeah.
She's sensitive and crazy.
Oh, she's a Gemini? Yeah, okay.
That's why her and Nefeli are like besties.
Yeah.
Same human being.
Yeah.
I have pictures to prove it. They raised the same eyebrow in a photo, and I was like,
I love
"Jeez."
that.
My mom's a Scorpio, and I'm a Virgo.
Oh yeah, we've got 2 Virgos
My
and 2
mom is
Pisces.
a Taurus. Oh, I love that.
Not that it matters to anyone. Okay, well, yeah, that was
Anyway.
Maria. Okay. Well, that was Maria. I hope you guys actually read it. I know I didn't finish it, and we just let you know that it ends in a rude, sad way. But hopefully you can read it if you have the capacity to do so, because we clearly don't have capacity to do that.
It ended fine.
Okay, hold up. That's what I'm saying. That's what left me so well, you didn't finish it because at the end he's just like,
You don't
he goes
know.
through all the grief. He goes through all
Yep.
the grief, and then he's like, and anyway, I got onto my fucking horse and left.
And I just fucking
I
left.
looked at the mansion, the house that I love so much, that has all of my memories of when I was happy, and I
Yeah.
left.
It's
And it ends, and I'm just like,
even when that's the thing is like I don't even dislike tragedies. I kind of love
it's live.
cyclical storytelling and also
It's a cyclical cycle of cycles.
I love
shut up.
I love this book.
I yeah.
July, it's Colombia's
Oh,
independence
yeah.
Oh,
month. So I thought it was
Happy
very cool.
Colombian Independence
Yeah, I
Month.
thought it was very interesting. July 20th.
How coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few days ago.
Yeah, and then August 7 coming up. It's the main battle, the last battle that Simon Bolivar had with the Spaniards, where it was
Oh,
it was
nice.
it's actually in my parents' state. They actually breed some of the best cyclists in the world because they train out there because the Spaniards couldn't get up there. It was too high, too cold. A lot of them died just from nature.
Yeah. That happens.
Hella proud.
I'm sure the altitude
Yeah.
helps
My-
with that.
My dad's from the highest elevated lake in South America.
Oh wow.
I go to Denver and I'm like winded.
Oh, I love Denver. I love Denver so much. It reminds me of home, actually.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can
It
see
reminds
that.
me of going home. Yeah. I miss it. It's been like 10 years.
Oh, wow. So, I was gonna ask. So when did you come? But
Huh, I
probably 10
wonder.
years ago. That would check out.
2012. And end of 2012, I was 14. Again, another thing that I related to Efrain.
Yeah.
The travel and being how, like,
When
lucky.
you're like a child.
How lucky I was to travel. Because it just opens up a whole new world to you.
A whole new world.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And that's the
Let's
B
see.
movie.
I lost my shit when you said the B movie.
That
I
was
know
so
I
hard
have
to edit.
not.
I'm not gonna lie.
I was literally cackling.
Can I
Yeah.
suggest a book for the listeners?
Fine.
Simon Bolivar's bibliography. It's a great book.
Is it called Simone? Bolivar?
Simon Bolivar.
Is that what it's called?
Bovilar. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Is it by him?
no, it's based of his papers. Like like all of his things are
Oh,
considered like
nice.
national treasures
Oh,
and
sure,
like
sure.
Nice.
historic things. So they have a good grip of his life. And
Okay.
he comes from a fucking white family too. So like, yeah, but he went out to Europe around the time of the like, what is it? Civil rights, human rights were written. There's a name in French for it. Yeah, I think it was Voltaire that wrote it.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
And he essentially came back to the Americas and he was like,
Voltaire. Oh my god.
slavery is wrong.
Wow.
Revolution.
Who would
Spaniards,
think?
get the fuck out. He's my hero. I love him.
I definitely
He's my
remember
inspiration.
hearing
He's my
his
inspiration.
name in history class.
Yeah.
And colonialism.
Thank you.
And colonialism. Did pick a book for next month.
Oh.
You're welcome. Forgot about it until about 6 hours ago.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
And it is for Africa,
Oh,
an African
nice.
country, and it is on Hoopla Audio.
Is it in Nigeria?
No,
There's so many books by Nigerian authors.
there are a lot of books for Nigeria.
every time I pick up a book that is like supposed to be centered around African themes, it's Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I was like,
No,
no offense, guys, but I'm trying to
What
find
fucking
more
country
options.
are we doing? Kenya, I think.
Oh. Anyway.
Okay.
Jamie. Jamie is next month. When is
Yes,
the
that is
date?
August 27th. I just looked.
That's one day after my birthday. That's when Bluey's coming to
Birthday.
town.
Holy
Shit, Bluey's gonna be here.
Oh my God.
Lead
Are you
Center,
doing
August
okay?
27th.
No.
Buy your tickets at the Lead
It's
Center.
already too late. Stop.
Don't listen to me.
Don't go see Bluey. You're too late. Okay. So join us next month when we read A Grain of Wheat by Gugu wa Tiongo. I had to Google how to pronounce his name, but that was correct. I watched a video of him pronouncing it.
Nice.
Cool.
I'm so proud of you when you do that.
Thank you. I do what I can. And he is a Kenyan author. So we will be doing Kenya next month. Our first African book. And I think you said we've done a book from every other continent so far.
I'm fairly confident about that, but don't quote me.
Not Antarctica, because there's
Penguins.
Untrue. I'm reading a book about Antarctica right now that I'm going to scratch off my map with because it was written by someone who was a
Captain?
guest. No, she's a guest author. So she stayed there for X amount of time and wrote a memoir and a thriller and a romance novel.
Okay.
We can cut all of that out.
We should do
Anyway,
that.
see you next time.
Bye.
See you next time. See you next time.
The suppression, the use of marijuana.
This podcast was brought to you in part by KCUN
Yeah, we could say that.
Please tell me you recorded that.
89.3 FM KCUN.
Perfect.